For each mouthful, there's an offensive expiation. Nice. Like, oh, now that's one crime. Oh, that's crime number 2. Oh, crime number 3. Buddhist Books Podcast, episode 117, Tipiṭaka, part 55. Thank you, Sammy Hagar, in which we'll be continuing to read Pācittiya. We'll start with part 27, or Roman numeral 27, of the section that we're in. If this is your first time seeing me, do go ahead and click right there. That will take you to episode 1 of the Tipiṭaka. It's a better place to start. I'd like to welcome our special guest for today, Yeshi Tsogyo. Once upon a time, about 1,300 years ago, there was a Tibetan princess in present-day Tibet. And back then there were smaller kingdoms, and so anyway. I'm telling the Cliff Notes version, by the way. I'm not a scholar, nor a teacher. I'm just telling you a story, as far as I know it. Due to the onset of Kali Yuga, you're stuck with me rather than a scholar. But anyway, she was a devotee of the teachings of a man who came about 1,300 years before her. Lord Buddha, Siddhartha Gautama. Mahayana Buddhism was present, flourishing to a certain degree, but still the minority religion in the region at that time. Now, skipping all the part where she was supposed to be the most beautiful woman in the world and all this yada yada BS that men like to talk about, she eventually married a king, as princesses tend to do. And this particular king was moved to send for some scholar monks. One of particular note was said to be a master in the Vajrayana path, which they hadn't really had much. They didn't have much of the Vajrayana teachings at that time. So the second Dharma king sent for Padmasambhava. And he went through some great preparations to enter into a land that was largely unfriendly toward Buddhism, especially some new form of Buddhism that had developed recently in Nalanda and a few other places. Basically, Mahayana plus Tantra, which basically means burning incense and ringing bells and doing the chants on your own at home, as opposed to always needing to go to a temple. There were a few other practices that are more well-known. But anyway, so they sent for this particular scholar monk who was born in Pakistan. You don't see that bumper sticker quite as much as the other one now, do you? Though they didn't call it that back then. Udayana, I believe, was the name of the region. And he had his own story, as everyone does. His teachers, of course, had their own stories. And so he came and met with the king. And shortly after meeting the king and the queen, now queen, Yeshi Tsogyo, Padmasambhava determined that the king was not in a position where he was ready to attain enlightenment in that particular lifetime. Reasons such as that he wavers, he goes back and forth a lot. He's always trying to please the more dominant religion, which was not Buddhism. There were various people around the court. He had his mind on politics quite a lot. But his wife, the queen, had been, as I said, devoted. She wanted to be a nun. She didn't want to be married off to the king, but against her will, she was. And so this teacher found a great potential in Yeshe Tsogyal. And he worked with her for a number of months, and then he left Tibet. And from that point on, the young Yeshe Tsogyal, decade after decade, was the source of these oral teachings and the keeper of the written teachings. And it was said that she had a photographic memory, that she remembered every word that was taught to her. And so, from the queen of Tibet, well, the queen of the region at the time, the Tibetan queen, let's say, and perhaps nun, although that word usually implies an older form of Buddhism. She was doing practices that, for example, would have been forbidden in the Tipiṭaka. But we will learn about all that as we go. But anyway, that's the story of Yeshe Tsogyal. From her, and with the teachings that were given to her, was born what is now referred to as the Nyingma tradition. This here is a Nyingma monk's robe. I am not ordained, but I wear the robe out of respect and love. So that's the story of Yeshe Tsogyal, and she very much loved her teacher. And, one might even speculate that on a certain level she was in love with him, but she was more devoted to the teachings, which include non-attachment, and the spirit of Brahmacharya, Rule 1 in Parajika, for instance. If not the practice, some rules get bent a little bit in Vajrayana, but the idea of not becoming attached to temporal things or people as much as the path toward enlightenment does remain. So while she spoke very, very, very highly of him, I don't think she would have said that she was in love with him. But anyway, a few hundred years after she passed away, the practice of venerating that teacher who came and went was adopted and continues to this day. Yes, we all know Padmasambhava. So I thought I would tell you that story from maybe a slightly different point of view than you had heard it before. If you're interested, I have a podcast that's older than this one that you can get to by clicking right here. It's called What Would Yeshe Do? Which focuses on Tibetan Vajrayana Buddhism with an emphasis on Yeshe Tsogyal. And I always try to steer the topic toward her, but the various monks from the various monastic Vajrayana orders in Tibet, or from Tibet, while they respect her, her statue is found very small beside Padmasambhava at times in his temples. There's only a few stories they usually remember. But my mom grew up in a time when women were struggling to be taken seriously. In World War II in the United States and other places, when all the men went off to fight in the war, there was still work to be done. And so, while traditionally women didn't work, the rule was changed and women did work and they ran the country. And then when the men came back, the powers that be thought that, okay, now the women should go home and work in the kitchen and have babies, and the men should go back to work. And they started coming out with textbooks and propaganda videos and things that they would teach young women in high school about women and their place. And they did not like that. So the combination, the 1-2 punch of like, okay, now you're running the country. You're just as capable of all of these jobs as the men are. Now that the men are gone, you can run the country. They did it very well. There was prosperity. But now, okay, now go back. Don't forget that women are inferior to men. Well, they did not like that, and out of that was born that aspect of the civil rights movement in the 60s and the 70s. And as a result, there's a lot more equality. There's women in the military and so on and so forth. But this has been a very recent phenomenon. And prior to all that, as I mentioned before, if it were 1962 rather than 2022, reading this part of the Tipiṭaka would probably just be like, oh, well, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, the women should be put in their place, as people used to say. When I was very young, in the 80s, my mom would explain to me that this is how men behave. You're still a boy, so you're not yet a man. When you become a man, you will have a choice to act like these male chauvinist pigs, it's a term she often used, or not. And a lot of other people, I think, were raised with similar moms. And then there was a movement where people did their best, tried awkwardly in many ways, as well as fighting and making great positive changes happen. And then there's, of course, the backlash to that, the people who still think that the way that it was before, make America great again, those people. Well, it's sad to see younger people, Zoomers, they call them, so many of them talking about how they use the word feminism as like a bad word. They don't like it. They associate it, I think, with Captain Marvel, where you take the old Aristotelian hero's journey and then change the male lead to a female lead and then say, doesn't that look weird? That's why feminism is stupid. And that's a very oversimplified and harebrained interpretation of events. And I think people need to learn a little bit more about history and have a little bit more compassion and allow the world to change for the better. All right, I think I've gotten that all out of my system. I could go on, but that's not what you came here for. I wanted to apologize for the last couple of episodes and my emotional tone and my reaction to it. I am a human being. I am reading this for the first time, and you are witnessing what that looks like. So I am determined. Here, wait. I am determined, now that you know where I'm coming from as far as all that goes. That is part of the outer petals of the mandala. The core of the mandala, of course, hopefully we're all pretty familiar with. The eightfold path, the Four Noble Truths, the wisdom and the path of enlightenment. What we're reading now is the bureaucratic structure, the rules and regulations, the 2,600-year-old way of things that was implemented in order for the teachings of the Buddha to last longer than his lifetime. For those who are still listening to me who didn't hear the Pācittiya episodes, at the very beginning, the one I point to, it all starts out with, basically it all starts out with Ananda asking Lord Buddha, how can we make sure that this order of monks lasts a long time? In other words, lasts longer than the life of the Buddha by more than 10, 50 years, even more than 100 years perhaps, which as we know, it did. And Lord Buddha said we have to have a set of rules, and we have to make all the monks chant them at certain times, and so that they'll remember them, and that will create the structure that will allow these teachings to last through the centuries. Ananda said, teach us, give us the rules. And Lord Buddha said, I'll give you the rules as things come up. And so what we're reading is the things coming up. Something happens, the 6 monks do this, and Lord Buddha makes a rule. I look forward to getting to the actual teachings, because that is the gold at the heart of the mandala. but right now we're filling in the gaps, exploring the edges of the mandala. And for today, now that I have said everything that I said to you, I will set aside my considerations and read the scriptures without stopping to talk about how sexist it is, because of course it is. It was before the mid-1960s, by a lot. And so I hope you will forgive me for any wrongdoing that I may have committed in the last few episodes, and perhaps the beginning of this episode. And I will now begin reading Expiation, Pācittiya, 27. Oh, I guess we ended, yeah. We'll start with 27. Hopefully I said that earlier. At one time, the Enlightened One, the Lord, was staying at Savatthi in the Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's monastery. Now, at that time, the group of 6 monks... Let's make it fun. What are they up to now? The group of 6 monks, having arranged together with nuns, like Yeshitsogyo, for instance, were going along the same high road. People, 3 dots, spread it about, saying, quote, "Just as we tour with our wives, so do these recluses, sons of the Sakyans, tour together with nuns." End quote. Heaven forbid. Monks heard these people who 3 dots spread it about. Those who were modest monks, 3 dots, spread it about, saying, quote, "How can this group of 6 monks, having arranged together with nuns, go along the same high road?" End quote. Quote, "Is it true, as is said, that you, monks, 3 dots, the same high road?" End quote. Quote, "It is true, Lord." End quote. The Enlightened One, the Lord, rebuked them, saying, quote, "How can you, foolish men, 3 dots, the same high road? It is not foolish men for pleasing those who are not yet, in parentheses, pleased, 3 dots. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. Whatever monk, having arranged together with a nun, should go along the same high road, even among villages, there is an offense of expiation." End quote. And thus this rule of training for monks came to be laid down by the Lord. Now at that time, several monks and nuns came to be going along the high road from Sakheta to Savatthi. Then these nuns spoke thus to these monks, quote, "We will go along with the masters." End quote. Quote, "Sisters, it is not allowable, having arranged together with a nun, to go along the same high road. Either you go first, or we will go." Parentheses first, end parentheses, end quote. Quote, "Honored sirs, the masters are the highest men. So let the masters go first." End quote. Then, as those nuns were going last, thieves robbed them on the way and assaulted them. Then these nuns, having arrived at Savatthi, told this matter to the nuns. The nuns, 3 dots, to the monks. The monks, 3 dots, to the Lord. Then the Lord, on this occasion, in this connection, having given reason talk, addressed the monks, saying, quote, "I'm sorry that my poor judgment got you attacked, and..." Just kidding. I'm just kidding. very kidding. Very serious. What did he say? Lord Buddha said, quote, "I allow you, monks, to go along the same high road, having arranged together with a nun, if it is on a road agreed upon as dangerous, frightening, parentheses where, close parentheses, one must go with a weapon. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. Whatever monk having arranged together with a nun should go along the same high road, even among villages, except at the right time, there is an offense of expiation. In this case, this is the right time. If a road becomes agreed upon as dangerous, frightening, parentheses, where, close parentheses, one must go with a weapon, this is the right time in this case. End quote. Whatever means, two more and we'll do the flashback. Monk means, nun means one ordained by both orders. Together with means together. Having arranged means if one arranges, saying, quote in quotes, we are going sister, we are going master, we are going master, we are going sister. All right. We are going either today or tomorrow or the next day. And quote in quotes, there is an offense of wrongdoing. What? Having arranged, meaning if one arranges, saying we are going sister, we are going master, we are going master, we are going sister, either tomorrow or the next day, there is an offense of wrongdoing. Scholars of Theravada, for whom that made sense, please contact me, comment below, and explain. What is the wrongdoing in this case? Is it a poor translation? Should I be looking at the Sanskrit-based translations and comparing them? That objectively does not make sense. Even among villages means in a village close enough for a cock. Parentheses, to walk. Rhyming. End parentheses. Oh, like a rooster. All right, yeah, okay. Sorry. Among every, parentheses, such, close parentheses, village, there is an offense of expiation. For every half yojana in what is not a village, in a jungle, there is an offense of expiation. Except at the right time means setting aside the right time. A road where one must go with a weapon means it comes to be impossible to go without a weapon. Dangerous means if on this road a place where thieves are halting is seen, a place where they are eating is seen, a place where they are resting is seen, a place where they are sitting down is seen, a place where they are lying down is seen. So a place where there are people, because, what do thieves look like? Anyway, sorry, frightening means if on this road people injured by thieves are seen, parentheses, people, close parentheses, plundered are seen, parentheses, people, close parentheses, beaten down are seen. Having gone to a frightening, parentheses, place, close parentheses, having seen that it is not frightening, they should be dismissed with the words, go sisters, in parentheses, in quotes, within quotes, because he's talking, saying what you should say, quotes within quotes, right? We're all here. If he thinks that it was arranged when it was arranged, you're not supposed to arrange it. So if you just end up on the same road, I'm still a little confused. Parentheses and, close parentheses, goes along the same high road, even among villages, except at the right time, there is an offense of expiation. If he is in doubt as to whether it was arranged, 3 dots. If he thinks that it was not arranged when it was arranged, 3 dots. There is an offense of expiation. If a monk arranges, parentheses and, close parentheses, a nun does not arrange, there is an offense of wrongdoing. So if there's a conspiracy between monks and nuns to walk on the same high road when it's not dangerous, that's the offense of expiation. All right. Arranging it is the wrongdoing. Actually, acting on the arranged plan is the offense of expiation. I think I understand that part that was confusing. All right. If he thinks that it was arranged when it was not arranged, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he is in doubt as to whether it was not arranged, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that it was not arranged when it was not arranged, there is no offense. All right. There is no offense if it is at the right time. If he goes not having arranged. So if you just happen to be walking in the same place at the same time, I guess. If the nun arranges, parentheses, and the monk does not arrange. Oh, if it's the nun's idea, then it's okay. Progressive. Sorry. If they go without, parentheses, making, I'm really looking forward to when this section is finished. Without, parentheses, making, close parentheses, a rendezvous. If there are dangers, if he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer, if the monk is just out of his freaking mind, just can't tell right from wrong, no sense of what's reality and what's not reality, then it's okay for him to travel with the nuns. Because he's mad. All right, the seventh. I'm going to keep reading because we're almost done. And that'll be nice to be on a different topic. Expiation, parentheses, Pācittiya, close parentheses. 28. At one time, the enlightened one, the Lord, was staying at Savatthi in the Jeta Grove in Anathapindika's monastery. Now at that time, the group of 6 monks, having arranged together with, parentheses, some, close parentheses, nuns, embarked in one boat. Let me guess. Monks and nuns shouldn't be in one boat together because they might have sex. Sorry. People, 3 dots, spread it about, people talking, because they live in a society that's totally f***ed. Sorry. People, 3 dots, spread it about, saying, quote, just as we amuse ourselves in a boat with our wives, so do recluses, sons of the Sakyans, having arranged together with the nuns, amuse themselves in a boat. 3 dots. Well, we've got to do something about changing the way we behave so that those assholes won't judge us, I guess, is the best way to preserve the teachings for a long time. Sometimes when you're trying to preserve something for a long time, sorry. Right. Monks heard these people who 3 dots spread it about. Those who were modest monks, modest, is that the word we're using? Modest? I mean, when the people were messing around with the female monkey, yeah, modest monks would. But modest monks, hearing about monks and nuns traveling in the same boat, go, yeah, that asshole's right. They shouldn't be in one boat. Those who were modest monks, 3 dots, spread it about, saying, quote, how can this group of 6 monks, having arranged together with nuns, embark in one boat? 3 dots. Is it true, as is said, that you, monks, having arranged together with nuns, embarked in one boat? It is true, Lord. The enlightened one, the Lord, rebuked them, saying, quote, how can you, foolish men, 3 dots, embark in one boat? It is not, foolish men, 3 dots. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. Whatever monk, having arranged together with a nun, should embark in one boat, going either upstream or downstream, there is an offense of expiation. End quote. They were pretty far from the ocean, so they were mostly talking about streams and rivers, right? Bihar. And thus this rule of training for monks came to be laid down by the Lord. Now at that time several monks and nuns were going along the high road from Sakketa to Savatthi. On the way there was a river to be crossed. The nuns spoke thus to these monks, quote, we will cross over together with the masters, end quote. Quote, sisters, it is not allowable, having arranged together with a nun, to embark in one boat. Either you cross over first or we will cross over, parentheses, first, close parentheses, end quote. Quote, honored sirs, the masters are the highest men, so let the masters cross over first, end quote. Then, as those nuns were crossing over last, thieves robbed them and assaulted them. Then these nuns, having arrived at Savatthi, told this matter to the nuns. The nuns 3 dots to the monks 3 dots to the Lord. Then the Lord, on this occasion, in this connection, having given reason to talk, addressed the monks, saying, quote, I allow you, monks, to embark in one boat, having arranged together with a nun, if it is for crossing over to the other bank. and thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. Whatever monk, having arranged together with a nun, should embark in one boat, either going either upstream or downstream, except for crossing over to the other bank, there is an offense of expiation. End quote. Whatever means 3 dots. Monk means 3 dots. Nun means one ordained by both orders. Together with means together. Having arranged means if one arranges, saying, quote within quotes, we are embarking, sister, we are embarking, master, we are embarking, master, we are embarking, sister, we are embarking either today or tomorrow or the next day, and quote within quotes, there is an offense of wrongdoing, because you're arranging something forbidden. If the monk embarks when the nun has embarked, there is an offense of expiation. If the nun embarks when the monk has embarked, there is an offense of expiation. Or if both embark, there is an offense of expiation. Going upstream means upstream. Going downstream means, any guesses? Downstream. Except for crossing over to the other bank means setting aside for crossing over to the other bank, obviously. In a village close enough for a cock to walk is in parentheses. Among every such, in parentheses, village, there is an offense of expiation. For every half yojana in what is not a village, in a jungle, there is an offense of expiation. If he thinks that it was arranged when it was arranged, and in parentheses, embarks in the same boat, going either upstream or downstream, except for crossing over to the other bank, there is an offense of expiation. If he is in doubt as to whether it was arranged, 3 dots, see Pācittiya 7, Part 3 and Part 2, 3 dots, no offense. Thank you, Ms. Horner. I was tired of reading the translation, so you were tired of translating, I was tired of reading. Let's just put everything in 3 dots. It's basically more of the same. All right, that's the end of Tipiṭaka. Just kidding. There is no offense if it is for crossing over to the other bank. If they embark not having arranged, if the nun arranges, parentheses, and, close parentheses, the monk does not arrange. If they embark without, parentheses, making, close parentheses, a rendezvous. If there are dangers, if he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer. The 8th, by all means, go up and downstream with a crazy monk. I'm sorry, crazy isn't PC, is it? Expiation, Pācittiya, 29. At one time, the enlightened one, the Lord, was staying at Rajagaha, Rajgir, in the bamboo grove at the squirrel's feeding place. Now, at that time, the nuns, I think you guys aren't in this one. Now, at that time, the nun Tulananda came to frequent a certain family as a regular diner, and the monks who were elders came to be invited by that householder. Then the nun Tuladana, dressing in the morning, taking her bowl and robe, approached that family, and having approached, she said to that householder, quote, Householder, why is this abundant solid food and soft food prepared? End quote. Quote, Lady, elders are invited by me. End quote. Quote, but who are the elders for you, householder? End quote. Quote, Master Shariputra. Oh, we know him. Master Moggallana the Great. Oh, we know him. Master Kokana the Great. It sounds familiar. Master Gotita the Great. Doesn't sound familiar. Master Gapina the Great. You're just making this up, aren't you? Master Kunda the Great. All right. Master Anuruddha. Sounds familiar. Master Revata. Master Upali. Master Ananda. We know him. And Master Rahula. End quote. Quote, but why did you, householder, invite fellows posing as great heroes? Ooh, shots fired, I guess. End quote. Quote, but who are the great heroes for you, sister? End quote. Quote, Master Devadatta, Master Kokalika, Master Kata Morakatisaka, Master the son of the lady Kanda, Master Samudadatta. You remember these guys? Monty Python, would you? Yeah, exactly. They were the schismatic little subcult following this guy's wrongful teachings, and I believe he's a cousin of the Buddha. So this nun is part of that. All right, let's see where it goes. Now I'm curious. Now this chance talk of the nun Tulananda was interrupted when these monks who were elders entered. She said, quote, "Householder, is it true that the great heroes are invited by you?" End quote. Quote, "You, lady," called them now fellows, them in parentheses. End quote within quotes. Fellows is in quotes within quotes. Now, quote, "great heroes," end quote within quotes, end quote. He said, and he turned her out of the house and put an end to regular dining. Those who were modest monks, three dots, spread it about, saying, quote, "How can Devadatta eat alms food knowing that it was procured through," parentheses, "the intervention of," and parentheses, "a nun," end quote. What? Let's keep reading. Maybe it will become clear. Three dots. Quote, "Is it true that you, Devadatta, ate alms food knowing that it was procured through," parentheses, "the intervention of a nun?" When did that happen in the story? I mean, maybe I'm just dense, but I'm not really understanding what's happening here. But I'll keep reading. Quote, "It is true, Lord." The enlightened one, the Lord, rebuked him, saying, "How can you, foolish man, eat alms food knowing that it was procured through," parentheses, "the intervention of," and parentheses, "a nun? It is not, foolish man, for pleasing those who are not yet," in parentheses, "pleased." Three dots. And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. Whatever monk should eat alms food, knowing that it was procured through, parentheses, "the intervention of," and parentheses, "a nun, there is an offense of expiation," end quote. And thus this rule of training for monks came to be laid down by the Lord. Okay, you guys are done. And, yeah, I know. This guy, he has a double role. One time I was in Fiddler on the Roof, and I played the role of Fiatka, the Christian Russian who marries the youngest of Tevia's daughters, Chava. Anyway, but during some scenes I would actually change my clothes very quickly, and I would be one of the Russian Jews, dancing or doing Shabbat, and then I would change back into my regular Russian clothes and come out and be Fiatka. Well, in a similar way, this guy is one of the six monks. At least he's come to be one of the six monks. I don't know if he was the first time they were introduced, but he's also apparently one of the schismatic monks. Moving along, not important. Now at that time, a certain monk who had gone forth from Rajagaha arrived at a family of, parentheses, his, close parentheses, relations. People saying, quote, "At last the Reverend Sir is come," and quote, "duly made ready a meal. A nun who frequented that family spoke thus to these people, quote, 'Sirs, give a meal to the master,' end quote. Then that monk thinking, quote, 'It is forbidden by the Lord to eat alms food, knowing that it was procured through,' parentheses, "the intervention of," close parentheses, "a nun," end quote. Being scrupulous, did not accept it. He was not able to walk for alms. He became famished. Then that monk, having gone to the monastery, told this matter to the monks. The monks told this matter to the Lord. Then the Lord, on this occasion, in this connection, having given reason to talk, addressed the monks, saying, quote, "I allow you, monks, to eat alms food, knowing that it was procured through," parentheses, "the intervention of," close parentheses, "a nun, if there is a prior arrangement with the householder." And thus, monks, this rule of training should be set forth. Whatever monk should eat alms food, knowing that it was procured through, parentheses, the intervention of, close parentheses, a nun, unless there is a prior arrangement with the householder, there is an offense of expiation. Whatever means 3 dots. Monk means 3 dots. He knows means either he knows by himself or others tell him, or she herself tells him. A nun means one ordained by both orders. Procures means previously not desirous of giving, not desirous of treating him. If she says, quote, the master is a repeater, the master is very learned, the master is versed in the suttantas, the master is an expert in Vinaya, the master is a speaker of Dhamma, give to the master, treat the master, and, quote, this means procures. Alms food means any one meal of the 5, parentheses, kinds of, close parentheses, meals. Unless there is a prior arrangement with the householder means setting aside the arrangement with the householder. Oh, now that's clear. All right. Yes. An arrangement with the householder means they are relations, or they are invited, or they are ordinarily prepared, parentheses, for the monk, end parentheses. Now it's actually clear. All right. If he says, quote, within quotes, I will eat, end quote, within quotes, and accepts, parentheses, a meal, close parentheses, unless there is a prior arrangement with the householder, there is an offense of wrongdoing. For each mouthful, there's an offense of expiation. Nice. Like, oh, now that's 1 crime. Oh, that's crime number 2. Oh, crime number 3. I like that. All right. If he thinks that it is procured when it is procured, parentheses, and, close parentheses, eats it, unless there is a prior arrangement with the householder, there is an offense of expiation. If he is in doubt as to whether it is procured, parentheses, and, in parentheses, eats, 3 dots, with the householder, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that it is not procured when it is procured, parentheses, and, close parentheses, eats, 3 dots, with the householder, there is no offense. If he eats what is procured through, parentheses, the intervention of, close parentheses, one ordained by one, open parentheses, order only, close parentheses, unless there is a prior arrangement with the householder, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that it is procured when it is not procured, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he is in doubt as to whether it is not procured, there is an offense of wrongdoing. If he thinks that it is not procured when it is not procured, there is no offense. There is no offense if there is a prior arrangement with the householder. If a female probationer procures it, if a female novice procures it, setting aside the 5 parentheses kinds of, close parentheses, meals, there is no offense in, parentheses, eating, close parentheses, any others. All right? If he is mad, if he is the first wrongdoer, the 9th. All right. So, next time, we will begin by reading the last of this set of 10 rules. And then we can do the keys and move on to another section. And that will be a cause for celebration. Therefore, this is also a cause for celebration, even as New Year's Eve is a cause for celebration. Thank you for going on this ride with me, and thank you for, I don't know. I'm talking to hypothetical people. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're in Bhutan or the US or Canada or Tibet or India. I don't know if you're a right-winger, a left-winger, male, female, old or young. I don't know if you were disgusted by my opening statements or in total agreement with them. But whatever the case may be, may you be happy. May you be serene. May you be in peace. All right. Now, at the risk of being redundant, I'll do my usual closing now. Special thanks to our special guest, Yeshin Sogil, and her teacher, that guy, for Pakistan. To the north and to the south, to the east and to the west, to the spirits of light among us and to the spirits below, we send out our reverent love and compassion. May all beings be happy. May all beings be serene. May all beings be in peace. Until next time.